Rebalancing. Over time, asset classes produce different returns, so the portfolio's asset allocation changes. Therefore, to recapture the portfolio's original risk and return characteristics, the portfolio should be rebalanced. The primary goal of a rebalancing strategy is to minimize risk relative to a target asset allocation, rather than to maximize returns. The decisions that can determine the difference between a portfolio's actual performance and that of the portfolio's target asset allocation include how frequently the portfolio is monitored, the degree of deviation from the target asset allocation that triggers a rebalancing event, and whether a portfolio is rebalanced to its target or to a close approximation of the target. Periodic rebalancing method triggers the rebalancing event based on a set time schedule, such as monthly, quarterly, annually. Regardless of how much or how little the portfolio's asset allocation has drifted from its target asset allocation. A threshold rebalancing method triggers the rebalancing event when a portfolio deviates from its target asset allocation by a predetermined minimum percentage, such as 5%, 10%, 20%, and so on. The nature of this strategy requires regular monitoring, as it is rebalanced basis the threshold. Let's take an example. Target equity allocation is 55% with a 5% tolerance band. In case of tolerance-based rebalancing, if the equities appreciated rapidly and reached the 60% equity threshold in just 6 months, then the rebalancing trade would occur in 6 months. If equities grew more slowly and it took 3 years before the portfolio's equity exposure finally drifted up to 60%, then it would be 3 years before the first rebalancing trade occurred. However, with the annual rebalancing, it would have rebalanced every year. What should the threshold band be? How much of a relative movement is appropriate to trigger a trade? As with any allocation band approach, the key here is to set the threshold wide enough that it won't trigger an excessive volume of trades or repeatedly curtail positive momentum, but not to set the threshold so wide that any rebalancing opportunities are lost because no trades are triggered at all. The periodic and threshold rebalancing combines the periodic and threshold strategies. The portfolio is monitored on a set time schedule, but is rebalanced only if the allocation deviates from the target by the predetermined minimum rebalancing threshold. Costs of rebalancing refers to 1. Applicable taxes, like capital gains taxes, may be due upon the sale if the asset sold has appreciated in value. 2. Transaction costs to execute and process the trades, which include brokerage, commissions, and exit loads if any. 3. Time and labor costs to compute the rebalancing amount. These costs are incurred either by the investor directly or by a professional investment manager. Rebalancing a portfolio with dividends, interest payments, realized capital gains, or new contributions can help investors both exercise risk control and trim the costs of rebalancing. During volatile markets, the tolerance band method can be more expensive than periodic rebalancing because you could be buying and selling more frequently and potentially incurring more in trading costs. Those costs will vary, however, based on the composition of your portfolio. Whichever rebalancing method you choose, keep in mind that as your investing goals and time horizon change due to life events, such as the birth of a child or the approach of retirement, you may want to rethink and potentially adjust your target asset allocation.